And we are live. Welcome to the third and final Nerdy Cast for BB World 14 here in the lovely Venetian Vegas Casino and Resort and pool
and restaurants.
Lots of restaurants.
And they have canals, Venetian canals.
I also played Walking Dead slot machine.
Yeah, and I heard you did pretty good.
I won $22.05.
How much did you spend? Oh, that's your net.
That was my overall
Nice.
profit. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. I beat Vegas.
Take that.
I beat Vegas. I should write a book.
Take that.
I should write a book. So
I mean,
we're
not overcharged for drinks or food or anything. I think really they beat us if you think about it.
Maybe a wash. So we are excited to be here for the third and final installment, but sad because it is the final installment.
Single tier.
It has been a great conference here at BB World 14. Lots of energetic people. New friends have been made. Shout out to Melissa and
Finkel.
Einhorn.
Finkel.
Einhorn.
Einhorn is Finkel?
Einhorn is Finkel.
Finkel is Einhorn.
Yeah. So shout out to her as she heads back to Maryland right now. Probably asleep at this because she worked very hard.
She did.
Worked hard networking, and that's what's great about conferences like that. And the Twitter feed, social media has been on fire throughout the entire conference.
Like Alicia Keys' girl.
Yes. So today we're actually going to talk about blended learning, which is perfect because here we are doing a digital event at a physical event. So we're blending ourselves.
Like we have an in-person audience.
Yes.
Only one person right now, but there's hundreds coming our way.
They are. The keynote has ended, and so people are going to file by, and it'll be nice and noisy because good thinking and learning comes during noisy periods. That's what I say.
It's true.
That's what I say. So what I've put out there is the question for all the wonderful people. And, of course, Derek is already on board with a response. So he doesn't mess around. He wants to answer right away. Why is blended learning valuable? And my man Derek out there says, first, we might want to stop calling it blended learning. It can turn teachers off trying new ideas. Ooh, what do you think about that, Tim?
I think as a teacher, it should be ingrained within your very being to try new ideas. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but if your job is to be keeping up with what's relevant in the world and to be bringing up the next generation, we should be trying new ideas constantly and nonstop.
What do you think about not calling it blended learning? Did we call it blended learning when we started using overhead projectors?
Well, or are we not calling it blended learning to not scare
strips?
teachers, or not calling it blended learning because it just is what good learning is now?
Well, it could be both. I mean,
Okay.
Why can't it be both when you look at blended learning? I mean, again, I don't think it was called blended learning when they started showing film strips, right? I mean, when they rolled in the TVs and the VCRs, I can't imagine there was like, look at this blended learning environment that we've created. Because blended learning is just putting together two different types of learning, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to just pull back and say what it is. So with blended learning, we're specifically talking about is obviously the online world in which work can take place and the face-to-face brick-and-mortar world, which is the traditional world for teaching, and it takes place. So I don't know. I'm interested by Derek's thought there because I don't know. Maybe I agree with him on this. That you say blended learning and they go, online learning. I don't know how to do online and it scares me and I don't want any part of it. I think it's something that those of us that use a blended learning model need to keep speaking and talking about to help ease some of those fears, right?
But it is different. So if we just call it learning, are they going to change anything?
I don't know. I mean, it's a question. It's a question. Well, I think it's an important question. I mean, do we need the buzzwords? Should we need the buzzwords? I mean, you obviously have to name things. I mean, flipped learning again. I've talked about. It's something that English teachers have been doing for decades. That concept of what an English teacher does is considered flipped learning. They called it flipped learning. I was so interested. I looked it up. I'm like, oh, I've been doing this. But it didn't have a name before.
It sounded
so
much more exciting than what it really was.
It really did.
Integrating acrobatics into your daily teaching assignments.
And I'm not knocking flip learning. I'm just saying is that for English teachers, it's something that actually we've been doing for quite some time. So when we look at blended learning, we look at again, we're at Blackboard's conference here, and they talk about blended learning for them with the Blackboard platform in university level. I was doing blended learning for many, many years at the university level. I mean, accessing Blackboard and the assignments and posting assignments and getting the feedback through there, and then going to the classroom and interacting that way. So I think the university level's been doing blended learning before that was even, again, a term.
But even pre-online classes, blended learning existed in higher ed. You were expected to do much of your learning outside of teacher contact. I think that's really what we're talking about, is you have your face-to-face learning, and then you have other means to bring things in. So you're learning both out of the classroom and in the classroom. I think with blended learning,
but I don't think that's blended learning, though. I mean, just because you're learning on your own, I don't think that would constitute blended learning.
Go on.
Well, the way that we're all learning on our own. So anytime my kid goes home and reads on his own, I've done blended learning.
I think you're doing I guess this specific definition of blended learning, we're talking about integrating the online with the online. But I think the mixing of any learning media, it just comes down to buzzwords and how they're interpreted.
See it that way. I mean,
I guess I'm picturing more from the elementary level, when most of the learning took, like, the kids right in front of you, and you're instructing and giving them that information.
Well, should you have blended learning with an online element in the elementary level?
Yes.
Is that too much?
No, not at all.
To trust a third grader to go online and do work on their own?
No, not one bit. Is that too much? That is too difficult. We're already doing it at my school. I mean, that's kind of the big initiative we're pushing, is we're teaching. The nice thing about it is, as we start moving towards more personalized learning and more individualized education for students, the teacher can't be everywhere all the time. So what blended learning allows is it gives you an additional medium to provide work for kids. The nice thing about blended learning is you can differentiate the stuff your kids are accessing online. Plus, while your kids are learning and doing the online pieces, you can pull small groups, pull a kid, and work with them one-on-one or in a small group, and maximize your time. They're learning both with the information you've given them, and then also when you need to check in and confer with them and see how they're doing, they get more individualized instruction. I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Okay. You have X amount of hours of time with my child, Leo. I love you, buddy.
Okay.
Why are you now making him do all this extra work at home when he should be spending time with his family? Like, why can't you cover all of the things that you need to cover in your classroom? This is something I've actually heard before. Why are you making them do more work at home when you should be covering all the work in your classroom?
We are. They do their blended learning piece when they're in the classroom. So as opposed to just I have 25 kids in front of me and teach them all at once, kids have work they're completing online on their own, and then I can also pull small groups of kids to do that work as well. I wouldn't expect those kids to take that work at home and do it at the elementary level.
But aren't a lot of blended learning models about going home and doing
I agree. Chunks of it? I'm not anti-homework, but I'm not a big homework fan, and I'm not going to send all this work. I mean, can you imagine teaching full class instruction for 4 or 5 hours during the day once you subtract all the other things they do, and then expecting kids to go home and do all that additional work online? That just seems overkill for me, especially at the elementary level.
Isn't that the university model?
It is the university model.
And we're back.
We're back. Sorry about that.
Sorry, everyone. People are just blowing up the Wi-Fi usage after the keynote by Jeffrey Canada. The wall was going crazy, which is great.
I'll check in their email.
Which I think again is a kind of example of the blended environment. I won't say blended learning, but the blended environment in which education conferences have kind of moved in regards to allowing people to have access so they can use their devices to share what they're learning and connect with other people that are home so that they can also kind of participate from afar. But what we're saying in regards to homework and the concept of blended learning models.
I've been thinking more about what you said, and I think the big difference between, at least where I'm coming from, elementary, college, and high school is the contact time we have with our students. So I have kids for 4 to 5. I mean, you have them all day, but your actual instruction time is 4 or 5 hours a day. Whereas in high school, you might have them for 15 minutes a day. In college, you might have them for 2 to 4 hours a week. And so, in order to cover what's expected at that level, yes, they have to do a significant amount of work outside of the classroom. At the elementary level is begin to integrate subjects more and do more of that work. What I like about the blended learning approach, the blended learning approach at elementary is you're allowing kids to now work on their pace. So as opposed to follow along with me as a teacher to go through these hours each day, you can kind of give them a chunk of work that needs to be accomplished during the week. Check in with them, they can do that work, but it doesn't necessarily need to be done.
So we're looking at blended learning as a way to differentiate for kids.
Absolutely.
Well, that kind of works. We got there eventually, right?
We did.
Well,
as we're working, as you do more and more small group instruction with groups of kids, the rest of the kids can't just sit there or can't just read a book for 4 hours. I mean, they could, but that's not really helpful for everyone. So blended learning allows you to give them very specific tasks to what they need to accomplish, what they need to do, and hopefully the teacher has taken time to really kind of vet that information and, really practicing, really working on independent projects. There's stuff they're doing so they're engaged, whether they're with you or they're not with you.
I want to bring up something Stacy Hawthorne tweeted, and Stacy is from Ohio. OHORU. No.
No, sorry.
Anyway, what she brought up was an amazing couple of points that I want to say here. First, she said there are so many people making big money off of defining blended learning that the term loses meaning to real teachers. I think that's an excellent point, Stacy. And she goes on to say, to me, blended learning combines face-to-face and digital instruction that helps to inform and personalize the face-to-face realm. And then Derek chimed in, at elementary levels, blended learning can support parents, new math methods, connections to the classroom. Which is, I think about this. He mentioned new math methods. So I am very much afraid of these new math methods.
I need to know what these new math methods are people keep speaking of. Math has not changed.
Like one of my math friends told me that they did a math formula and they said do it. I said okay. It was like simple addition or whatever. And I was like, oh, and you carry the one over. He goes, what do you mean you carry the one? I go, you carry it. Like, you can't carry anything in math. Like we don't do that anymore. You don't carry math. Like it's completely confusing. And so I'm going to actually have to invest in my own blended learning when I learn math with my son as he learns it, because I'm not going to be able to help him do math the way that he was taught because I was not taught that way. Like I'm going to have an experience. What? Khan Academy. I'm going to experience what some parents are experiencing now in regards to technology coming home, or what do you mean you have to use Edmodo to submit your work? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, what do you mean you have to post on a bulletin board or something like that? So I'm going to have that same type of anxiety, and I really feel for teachers that have to deal with that, because it's a different world that we're ushering in, and I wonder if districts are supporting parents in this move to blended learning as much as they're trying to support students and staff.
I think a lot of districts are making those efforts out there. They're putting things online, they're open communication, they're having curriculum nights, they're providing the ways. But with parents, you have to take that initiative. You have to come in and accept that, offer the information that's added out there instead of kind of passively sitting back and hoping to understand this new ways of teaching. I said, obviously, if teaching is changing, the schools can't just stop because parents are having difficulty at home, but we have to provide that support and have to provide that thing provide the information parents need to understand that. I keep going, have so many arguments with people about this new math thing. I think we have a lot of alternate algorithms being used in math, maybe not necessarily the traditional ones we've used, but I think a good teacher doesn't force kids to use alternate algorithms. A good teacher shows kids all the different ways to accomplish something in math and allows kids to find the one that's most comfortable or most beneficial for them.
Except when the tests are telling you to solve problems a certain way. And
but
show your
that
work.
is that's a whole other topic on what curriculum a school or district decides to buy.
But they buy depending on what test the state is paid to give to their kids to measure their growth, right?
And that's why I think we're seeing a huge backlash currently undergoing in states right now against that. The online testing piece is what has people so outraged about all of it, and that's what people are complaining about, and they're kind of stepping back. It's very interesting to see the conversations take place on all of these topics.
And Derek says new math is more focused on why we use the methods we use, asking does it make sense. Also, bar models. I don't even know.
Model drawing.
I don't even know what bar models are.
Model drawing is a way that you teach kids wholes and parts, how the different concepts of math come together. But it comes back down to, you can teach kids, here's an algorithm, do this, you get this answer, but they really understand what happened in that math, whereas opposed to what we're trying to get kids to understand now is concepts. What we talked about yesterday is kids need to understand the process. If you understand the process you're going through, if you understand what's happening in the math, then when you come across something that is unfamiliar, you can rationalize your way through it, think your way through it, and understand those things. But you have to have a deep understanding of how math works. Well, what's funny to me is there's all these people complaining about some of this different curriculum coming out, and it's just proving that the older generations don't have mathematical concepts down. Like, if you sat down and thought about it, you're like, oh, it does make sense. It's very different than what I was taught, but it makes sense.
And I'm confident that I could figure it out eventually. I think Stacey says something. Your son should be able to do math the way that he understands it best. There is one right answer, not one right way in math. And I agree with that 100%. I just wish that my math teachers would have. Because how many times I was told, well, how did you get that? I'm like, I figured it out in my head. Like, that's what I would do. I would be able to figure out, like, I couldn't do the math. My dyslexia would have me flip numbers around, and you move one number, forget it. Your entire equation is worthless. You miss one decimal. So I would walk it through my head, like, we have to show your work. I'm like, well, I can't. I mean, it doesn't work for me that way. And, for me, it really turned me off because it made math more difficult than it needed to be. But I guess when you look at the blended learning model, it definitely gives you an opportunity to allow kids to, attack work in different fashions, because, wow.
Did it just go Beverly Hills Cop up in here?
Beverly Hills Cop. I don't know if people can hear Beverly Hills Cop synthesizer music that's just started. This is fabulous.
I feel like we should start 80s, crime fighting right now.
Yes.
Roll over a car hood or
Can I be Judge Reinhold?
Yes, you can.
You can be Taggart.
Done.
Nice. I like the fact that blended learning can allow kids to, a few things. One, go over a lesson, go over a concept as many times as they need for them to understand it, and then come to class and demonstrate it. I like that. Again, for me in English, one of the reasons why I tend not to like to do a lot of out loud in-class reading is that those kids that can read faster are stuck in super slow motion as they're like, what is taking us so long?
That's why I was always off
So was I.
topic when they'd call on me finally. I'm like, I don't know where you are.
And then you have the kids that read even slower than what's being read in class. They're like, you're going too fast, and then you feel behind, and then you stop. You're like, all right. So you have the kids who can't read as fast. You have the kids who read faster, and they've all stopped. And then basically the 10% in the middle that reaches are like, this is nice. I don't have to read at home.
I hope people aren't teaching reading that way still.
Oh, absolutely. They absolutely are. There's some that still cold call on kids to read. And that's one of the scariest things I think you should do. Like, I refuse to cold call. I've had, a long time ago, this administrator isn't in my building anymore, told me that I should cold call kids more. Like, just randomly. And it just is the most painful thing I think you could ever do to a kid. It's cold call on them.
Yeah, it comes back down to what is your goal? To beat your kids into compliance, or to engage your kids?
You don't look like you're paying attention. I'm going to ask you a question that I know you don't know the answer to.
Publicly embarrass you.
Yep.
It's funny. You see the things sometimes. We're going to get in this weird topic, but sometimes you see the things teachers might do to students. You're like, if somebody did that to you in a staff meeting,
I know, right?
You would be.
You would be
like, You know, like if I minus 1 point on the class chart in front of the whole staff meeting and said, should have been paying attention. Or so-and-so, can you tell us what we were talking about just now while they're grading papers in the staff meeting?
The staff meeting.
Like, teachers would revolt. So
it would be brutal. And the embarrassment.
I know.
And you know what? The same thing that would happen in that meeting would happen in the classroom. No respect for the person that did it.
Yeah.
That teacher was like, wow, you could have pulled me aside at the end of the meeting and said, listen, I saw you doing X. I would really appreciate if you focus more on me. And that's what I do with kids. I'm like, hey, what was going on? I couldn't sleep last night because I was up babysitting my brother and sister because my parents both had to work double shifts. And then all of a sudden you realize I'm a huge jerk because I thought that I was the most important thing at the moment and you should have been paying attention to me. So I think it's off topic, but it's not. What blended learning allows to do, but no, really, is allows those kids to manage their pace in that time. So for that kid that has both parents working a double shift and he has to babysit, okay, he can do his online work on the way to school at the car. He can do it in the computer lab in the morning or during lunch or before class. So it does offer kids an element of anytime, anywhere learning, which I think is crucial when you're trying to make kids ready because we all work at an anytime, anywhere learning.
And teaches kids, I mean, a little bit of what I talked about yesterday with metacognition, it teaches kids to understand what they know and don't know. They might start on something and say, I'm not sure how to do this. I don't have access to my teacher right now. You know what, I'm going to move on to this other assignment I need to get done in the next 2 days. And it teaches them, I mean, that's how things work in the real world. Sometimes we're charged with a task where we need to connect with somebody or get some information from someone and they're not available. So you don't just sit around and twiddle your thumbs around. You move on to the next thing you can take care of and rearrange your schedule to account for that. And I think that comes back a lot to getting kids more excited about school. We talked a little bit yesterday about if your day was completely structured, which sadly it is sometimes for most of our teachers, but when to the minute you're told what to do every moment of the day, and it can feel like you're trapped. It can feel like you're in prison, and our kids feel that way too. They don't like their lives being completely that rigid. They want to have some freedom. They want to have some choice. They want to be able to accomplish and tackle things on their own time and what works best for them.
So do you think it's the lack of control that teachers fear in moving to a blended learning model?
Absolutely.
Why are we so obsessed with control? Why am I so obsessed with control? I'm not, but why are we?
But if we go back to the conversation we were just having about cold calling on kids, that's about control. That is to show I am in charge and you should be paying attention to me at all times. I don't like you doing what you want to do.
But shouldn't that teacher just be reflecting on why that kid was off task about their own classes? Isn't that what they should be doing?
Yes, they should. I agree with you 100%.
Then why don't they? Solve it. Solve the education crisis right now. Go. Solve it.
Okay. No, I think sometimes as teachers we need to stop and step back. And I think sometimes we get so stuck in the moment or so stuck in what we're doing. I've done things where I've said things to kids or assigned an assignment and then I step back and go, what was I thinking?
No.
I remember my first year teaching being like, I guess we should learn the states and capitals. I don't know why I thought we should learn the states and capitals, but I learned it in that grade. And then I remember I stopped and said, why am I teaching the kid? I don't know. Let's do something else. Like we have to sometimes stop back and self-reflect and think, why do we do the things we do? And that not only means instructionally, but a lot of times with classroom management, how we treat our kids, the relationships we build with kids. If a kid treated you the way you treated them, what would that relationship look like?
Yeah. Well, I think, and Stacy's brought up an excellent point, any Phineas and Ferb in you today? And I'm going to answer that two different ways, Stacy. There is a little Phineas and Ferb in me all the time. I would have been a maker. I would have been viewed as a maker growing up, if that term would have existed, and those type of things. I love to create. I love to write. I love to do those things. And summer was the time for me to do all the things I wanted to do that the school wouldn't let me do. So, in that instance, yes, there's some Phineas and Ferb in me. But in the other way, I'm sure you're asking for me to do a rendition of the theme song, which, you know what, I'm feeling punchy. I'm feeling pretty good. The people have asked. The people have spoken.
I'm feeling the Destiny's Child jumping that's playing in the background, and I am digging it.
That's not nearly as good as me saying there's 104 days of summer vacation, and school comes along just to end them, and the annual problem of our generation is finding a good way to spend them. I want to pick up the microphone and just start really rocking out with it. They've asked me to stop. They've all stopped, and everyone is logged
People
out.
are like revolting.
The internet has crashed.
I think we just got a cease and desist letter from Disney.
Again.
Well, first they're like, can you guys stop talking about Girl Meets World?
Yeah.
You're actually dropping viewership.
Yeah, it was not good.
Fine.
I wonder if Corey will be implementing blended learning in his classroom.
Based upon our live tweet of the first episode, I'm going to say no.
Probably not.
We were a little disappointed in Corey's teaching watching that first episode.
Yes, I was not happy about it. It's a good show, but if you want to see what not to do in the classroom, don't on the first day of school assign what was it?
Like 40 pages of reading.
40 pages of reading and like an 8-page essay on something that you care about.
Yeah.
It was something which was like, that's a cool assignment, but I don't know why 40 pages of reading and then an 8-page essay.
Still confused why whoever's in charge of scheduling put his daughter in his class. Like, surely there's another teacher in that school that could have taught her.
I'm thinking it might be a plot device.
It's not real?
It's not.
It's not a reality show?
Not a reality.
Following.
That would have been sweet if those two were really married. But I don't know.
That's what we all want to happen in real life.
Topanga. We all want to marry Topanga. Well, most of us. Not everyone's into Topanga. What I think about blended learning as we bring the show to a close, personally for me, I think it's valuable. The things that it's done, I mentioned this yesterday in our creativity talk, is that by moving to a blended model, it's allowed me the more freedom to do more fun learning activities in my classroom and to promote some of those things that are normally shied away from in the education world. And Genius Hour 20 Time is a perfect example of that in regards to, by moving to a blended model, I was really able to cut out a lot of stuff that would normally eat up a lot of class time. And, movies, for example. I would say, hey, we would normally watch this, but if you want to watch it on your own, you can find it on Netflix. Knock yourself out. You can go to a Blockbuster Video, and you can get it there.
Is it still around?
I think there's...
You probably
did they close all the brick and mortar?
I'm pretty sure you have to Redbox it.
Does Redbox it?
Or Family Video, which is surprisingly...
It's still around.
And they're still building new ones all the time. I don't know what's going on with the Family Video.
Sound investment plan. They're like, we've got the market cornered now that Blockbuster is full.
I'm shocked. And then there's one by our school, and I could manage that and make more money than I do teaching. So it's been tempting. It's been very tempting.
But I think
that's a whole other topic.
That's a whole other topic. North Carolina rocks. So everyone's shaking their head. So I think the blended model is valuable in that sense, and that's how I usually pitch it to teachers when I talk about online elements of curriculum or instruction. Is that, imagine if you had an extra 2 weeks of free time during the school year. Like, what would you do? And a lot of them say, I have no idea. Like, that concept is so foreign to me because I always feel like the last 3 weeks of school, I'm like, I've got 6 weeks left of curriculum to teach, and there's 3 weeks left of school. So the idea, right? So the idea of actually having more time, and I say it like with a lot of technology, it'll be work on the front end to put all the stuff that you want available to students online. But once you go through like that first year of putting everything there and available, then year after year after year, it's there, and the minor tweaks and minor, web changes.
Yeah, you just like reflect and adjust as needed. I tell that. I mean, you think about a lot of the non-blended approach or the other way. It was a lot of work on the front end and a lot of work delivering it.
Yeah.
So let's do all of our work on the front end. Let the delivery piece be a little easier, and it can be more tailored and more customized and differentiated for your kids, so everybody comes out a winner.
Well, and that's the piece of it is that blended learning is so awesome because it works for all curriculum areas. It's not an English thing. It's not a Spanish thing, a math thing. It could be whatever you need it to be in your content area. I have a chemistry teacher at my school who uses her LiveScribe pens to pencast in class while she's teaching in her examples. So she uses the overhead projector and has her hand there, does all her notes, does all of her pencasts.
Nice.
The Elmo.
Sorry. I was impressed.
Document camera. And pencasts at the same time. So the in-class kids are getting the notes. And then she posts those pencasts through Evernote to her site so that the kids can access the pencast even if they were in class for a review, or the kids that are absent can go, oh, I missed class. Well, they will actually get a voice over exactly what's going on in their class. Again, that's blended learning. Now, it takes
zero extra work from
and that's the cool thing is the way that she set it up is that it's not extra time. Some teachers would have done it at home in private and did out the lesson. But this way, she can actually get feedback from kids in class and say, oh, that's a good question. Let me show you. Take out another piece of paper and write it all down. So, for her, she doesn't necessarily have to have as many probably review sessions with kids like after school. She can say, hey, take out your phone. It's right there. You can listen to me do the exact same problem again.
We've been doing that same type of idea at the elementary level, but the teachers will use like their iPad. There's a lot of apps on your iPad where you can record yourself working out a problem. They do the same thing. They'd work that out. They can post it on a website online, and the kids can access that, and they can go back and see the example. You might have a 5-10 minute little mini lesson on how to do something, then you go back to your seat and go, oh wait, now I don't remember how to do that. And they can visit it online, get a review instead of having to wait for the teacher to get around to them, and he or she has a moment.
Well, and that's the nice part of blended learning is that it really offers opportunity. And, we want to emphasize this as we wrap this up and say our tearful goodbyes.
Yeah, it's going to be sad to leave BB World 14 behind.
We'll be excited. Hopefully they'll bring us back for BB World 15.
That would be fantastic.
Hint, nudge,
wink.
Nudge. We'll bring friends if we have any left by next year. We'll bring other people.
If you haven't been visiting all the information online, definitely check that out, bbworldk12live.com. Everything will be archived up there. And the other exciting thing is they are actually creating an app with all the content. So myself, Nick, Steven Anderson, we will be on that app, and you'll be able to download that for free. They're hoping to get it out by the time school begins. And once that's out, all that information will be archived. Hopefully our insane videos are in that app as well. That'd be good times. But yeah. All this content, all the stuff that happened will be available for you for free, which is pretty awesome.
So as we wrap the show, Tim, final thoughts? Blended learning or the conference as a whole?
Move forward. It's something you need to explore. If it's totally foreign to you, reach out on Twitter, reach out in your buildings, reach out to us, and explore it. I think you'll find out there's some major benefits for you. Don't just... And it looks different. I think that's something to remember when we were talking about flipped classroom earlier. Blended learning is going to look different for everybody in every classroom. Don't think it's this one thing and you have to follow it. You can adjust it and make it work for you and work for your students.
Yeah, reach out to people that are doing blended learning to various degrees. You can always reach me on Twitter at The Nerdy Teacher. Go to my website, nerdyteacher.com. English teachers is a good way to get ideas, but just because I'm an English teacher doesn't mean you can't check out what I'm doing, because as a math teacher or science teacher, you could say, oh, I could do that just with this lesson or with this unit. So you'd be surprised at how transferable some of the lessons that we do work for all content areas, whether you're an art teacher, music teacher, gym teacher, whatever it is to do. Blended learning can be a serious part of your classroom experience, and definitely want to encourage you to embrace it and try it. Check out the hashtag BBWorldK12Live. We'll have lots of good resources on it, the tweets for this conversation. Share it with friends, family members, pets.
Pets love learning about blended learning.
And I think any of those people would be excited to sit and listen to you talk about blended learning. So we are July 17th right now. So for some schools starting up next month. Very early.
Yeah, we start up in little over a month.
Yeah, I got a month and a half, roughly. September for the kids arrive, so there's time to at least explore it. And again, we're not asking people to change their entire way of teaching by September, but look at adding elements and give it a try, reflect, and say, hey, this is great, I want to keep doing this, or this doesn't work, I need to tweak it. So that's what we do as teachers, is try new things and reflect on them in the hopes that our students will actually do the same thing. It's actually great modeling for them as well. So closing it out for BB World 14.
I'm Tim Gwynn at TGwynn Online.
And I am Nick Provenzano at The Nerdy Teacher on Twitter. And thank you guys for coming out, watching us online, participating on Twitter. And we really hope to see you on the interwebs at any time, but we definitely hope to see you back next year at BB World 15. So
keep the conversation going.
Yes, thank you, and take care, everyone.